Okay, let's unpack this. If you ever, say, walked into a crystal shop or even just scrolled through wellness content online, you are definitely familiar with that vibrant rainbow chart,
Uh,
the seven chakra system.
oh, yeah, it's everywhere.
It really is. We see it constantly, complete with specific colors, gemstones, even sound frequencies assigned to each one. But here's the puzzle, right? Where did this whole idea of psychospiritual energy centers truly come from? Is it genuinely ancient wisdom, or is it more of a modern synthesis?
It is absolutely a synthesis, and that's what makes this history so fascinating, I think. The term itself, chakra, that's Sanskrit kaka or Pali kaka, it literally means wheel or circle.
Oh, wheel, okay.
Yeah, and it traces back to an ancestral Indo-European form. Fundamentally, though, these were never meant to be like physical organs you could find in dissection.
Right, not literal body parts.
No, not at all. They were concepts, tools visualized during deep meditation, primarily in Hindu and Buddhist tantric practices, energy centers, and what's called the subtle body.
So we need to separate the physical from the energetic right from the start. When we talk chakras, we're talking about this subtle body. Can you give us maybe a more tangible way to grasp that? It feels pretty abstract.
Yeah, it can be. Think of it this way. If your physical body, the Sanskrit term is stula sarira, if that's the hardware, the mass, the bones, the visible machine, then the subtle body, or sukshma sarira, is more like the operating system and the Wi-Fi network combined.
Okay, I like that.
It's the energy, the mind, the psyche, the emotions. They exist in parallel, constantly influencing each other. The chakras, then, are like the key nodes or, hubs within that energetic network.
That analogy really helps anchor the idea. So our mission then in this deep dive is to trace the history of that subtle body idea. See how we got from its earliest spiritual roots all the way to the very precise colors, frequencies, crystals associated with the system you see everywhere today.
Exactly. And try to understand why this specific framework feels so globally relevant right now.
Let's do it. Where do we start? The very beginning.
We really have to start with the roots. In the earliest Vedic texts, like the Rig Veda, the word chakra is used, but it's more metaphorical.
Metaphorical how?
Well, it might refer to the wheel of time, for instance. Or, in a political sense, you have the Chakravartin. That's the ideal universal king who turns the wheel of his empire. It wasn't about internal body centers yet.
Okay, so the word existed, but not with this meaning. What came first then, in terms of internal energy?
The concept of internal energy channels actually came first, the nadi.
The nadi, right, I've heard of those.
Precisely. The nadi, think of them as breath or energy channels, sort of like spiritual arteries. They get mentioned in texts like the Upanishads way back in the first millennium BCE.
Wow, that's old.
It is. And there are three main ones usually highlighted: Ida, Pingala, and the central channel, Sushumna. But the idea of distinct hierarchical internal energy centers, the stacked chakras we picture, that appears much, much later.
How much later are we talking?
We're talking around the 8th century CE. And interestingly, it seems to first appear clearly in Buddhist texts, like the Havajra Tantra.
Buddhist texts.
Yeah.
I always associated chakras primarily with Hinduism.
It's complex, they developed in both contexts, but some of the earliest clear mentions of hierarchical centers are in Buddhist Tantra. And critically, these medieval Buddhist systems often only mentioned 4 or 5 centers.
Wait, hang on. Only 4 or 5, not 7.
Not usually 7, no, not in those specific early sources.
I genuinely thought the 7 chakra system was, thousands of years old.
Yeah.
That completely changes the timeline in my head.
It does for many people. And another important point, we also have to remember that many classical yoga traditions, the ones really focused on achieving ultimate spiritual liberation, or moksha,
Yeah?
they actually viewed the whole chakranada kundalini subtle body physiology as kind of peripheral, almost secondary.
Really? Why peripheral?
Because their main focus was often on meditation, detachment, discrimination, transcending the body and mind, not necessarily manipulating subtle energies within it. That was more central to the tantric paths.
Okay, that provides crucial context. So the systems vary, different schools emphasize different things, and the core spiritual practice for some major traditions didn't even focus heavily on them. So when does the specific system we all recognize, the 6 chakras plus the crown, when does that actually enter the picture?
That specific 7 chakra system, so the 6 main centers along the spine plus the Sahasrara, the crown center, is most clearly laid out in an 11th century Kala Hindu text, the Kubjikamata Tantra.
11th century. Okay, so still quite old, but not Rig Veda old.
Definitely not. But its massive popularization in the West, and especially its association with specific colors and attempts to link it to Western science, that's strongly connected to Sir John Woodruff's 1919 book, The Serpent Power.
Ah, Woodruff again. So he's the bridge to the modern understanding for many.
He was a huge bridge, yeah. He brought these specific tantric concepts into the English-speaking esoteric world in a major way.
So let me see if I've got this straight. The rainbow system we use commonly today is largely a 20th century Western interpretation, heavily influenced by Woodruff, applied to a specific 11th century Hindu tantric framework,
Yes.
which itself built upon earlier, potentially 8th century Buddhist concepts of energy centers, which evolved from even older ideas about Nadi channels.
That's a pretty good summary of the lineage, yeah. It's a wild chronological chain when you lay it out like that.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what was the goal in those original tantric practices? Was it just about balancing your chakras like we hear today?
Well, balancing was part of it, but the ultimate goal was much grander. It was about transformation, really. It's about awakening this dormant spiritual energy known as kundalini in the Hindu texts.
Right, the serpent energy.
Exactly. Or it's sometimes called kandali or tumo in Buddhist contexts. This energy is seen as coiled at the base of the spine in the lowest chakra. The goal is to awaken it and guide its ascent up that central channel, the sushumna, through each chakra all the way to the crown.
And what happens at the crown?
That's the point of spiritual realization, enlightenment, union with the divine, depending on the specific tradition. So mastering these centers isn't just about feeling good day to day. It's literally a map for spiritual ascent.
Okay, now let's pivot to the modern mapping, because this is where it gets really interesting, where people start overlaying very specific tools, the colors, the crystals, the sound frequencies, onto those ancient nodes. Instead of just running through a checklist, let's maybe dive into a couple of key centers to see how all these elements are supposed to work together. Where should we start? Base level.
Makes sense. Let's start with the foundation. The root chakra, Muladhara, located right at the base of the spine. Its color association is red.
Red for root. Okay. And what's its focus?
This center is purely about grounding, physical survival, security. It's your fundamental sense of being safe and having your basic needs met here on Earth.
And if that foundation feels shaky, the sources talk about imbalance signs, right?
They do. If the root is underactive, you might feel weak, disconnected, fearful, perpetually worried about survival. If it's overactive, it can manifest as feeling out of control internally, maybe hoarding or exploding angrily, that kind of primal, aggressive survival response.
Got it. So what's the resonance tool used here for stability? You mentioned frequencies.
Yes, the associated solfeggio frequency is 396 hertz. This specific tone is believed, in these modern systems, to help release deep-seated guilt and fear emotions that often block that fundamental sense of security.
And crystals.
Paired with grounding crystals, things like red jasper, black onyx, hematite, the whole intention is to physically and energetically anchor the person, stabilize that base.
Okay, let's skip up a bit. What about the solar plexus chakra? Manipura, that's yellow, right? And it's about personal power. This feels like one where a lot of modern folks report feeling blocked.
Absolutely. The solar plexus, located in the upper abdomen, is often seen as our central power generator, our sense of self, confidence, identity. And yes, imbalances here are classic in today's world.
How do those imbalances show up?
Well, an underactive Manipura might leave you feeling completely powerless, like a victim of circumstances, low self-esteem. But conversely, an overactive one can lead to needing to control everything and everyone around you, becoming domineering, maybe overly competitive, trying to find power externally because you don't feel it internally.
The control freak archetype.
Exactly.
I find the frequency association here really fascinating. This center uses 528 hertz. What's the thinking there?
Yes, 528 hertz gets a lot of attention. It's often called the miracle frequency or even the DNA repair frequency in modern sound healing circles.
DNA repair, that sounds like a huge claim.
It is a huge claim, and we need to be careful there. But the intention behind using 528 hertz for the solar plexus, often along with crystals like citrine or yellow jasper or pyrite, is to help transform that energy, to boost authentic confidence from within so you don't need to seek external control, and instead you cultivate a strong sense of self-assured identity.
Okay, let's touch on one more key one.
Yeah.
The heart chakra, anahata. It's seen as the bridge, right, between the lower, more physical chakras and the upper, more spiritual ones.
That's exactly right. Located at the center of the chest, its colors are green or sometimes pink, and its focus is all about love, compassion, forgiveness, connection, and healing.
This feels like maybe the most famous one, governing our capacity for empathy, how we relate to others. What happens when this center is blocked, according to the sources?
Well, you might see intense issues with relationships. Someone with a blocked heart chakra might be entirely emotionally shut off, cold, isolated. Or, the flip side, they might become overly needy, jealous, codependent, poor boundaries, difficulty with giving and receiving love freely.
And the frequency for this relationship harmonizer.
That's 639 hertz. This frequency is specifically intended to help harmonize relationships, foster empathy, understanding, and tolerance.
And often pair with classic love stones like rose quartz or green aventurine, maybe rhodonite.
Precisely. The whole system creates this, well, this kind of narrative structure, doesn't it?
Right.
It links a physical location on the body to a specific emotional or psychological issue, and then offers a potential vibrational solution: color, sound, crystal.
It's a very neat package.
Yeah.
And that framework continues right up the spine.
Exactly. You have the throat chakra, Vishuddha, which is blue, using 741 hertz, dealing with communication, self-expression, speaking your truth. Then the third eye, Ajna, between the eyebrows, indigo, 852 hertz, focusing on intuition, insight, perception. And finally, the crown chakra, Sahasrara, at the very top of the head, violet or white, 963 hertz, which is about spiritual connection, enlightenment, connecting to universal consciousness. The entire subtle body is mapped vibrationally in this modern system.
Which brings us, I think, directly to the concept that really tries to bridge this esoteric world with something resembling hard science, entrainment. This feels like a sharp turn, moving from ancient texts and intuition to physics. Why did the West seemingly latch onto this principle to explain how crystals or sound might actually work?
That's a great question. I think it's because the Western mindset often seeks a mechanism, right? A scientifically plausible explanation for observed effects, even subjective ones. And entrainment is a genuine physics principle.
Okay, explain entrainment simply.
It basically states that when two vibrating bodies are near each other, their frequencies tend to synchronize. The energy of the one with a higher, more stable amplitude, a stronger, steadier vibration, will tend to dominate and pull the one with a lower, less stable amplitude into rhythm with it.
Like tuning forks.
Exactly like tuning forks. Or the classic historical example is Christian Huygens, back in the 17th century, noticing that pendulum clocks hanging on the same wall would eventually synchronize their swings. The vibrations travel through the wall.
Okay, so the theory then is, when our, let's say, less stable human energy field comes near a crystal.
The idea is that the crystal, particularly something like quartz, because of its highly ordered, precise internal geometric structure, its crystalline blueprint, possesses an incredibly stable high-amplitude frequency, much more stable than our fluctuating human energy field, which is affected by thoughts, emotions, stress.
Right.
So when our less stable field interacts with the crystal's super stable field, the human field begins to entrain. It starts to synchronize with the crystal's stability. And if that crystal is chosen for its resonance with a particular chakra frequency, the idea is it helps to stabilize and balance that specific out-of-sync energy center.
That's a really powerful conceptual leap. But this is a big but, isn't it? This is where we have to bring in the objective counterbalance. If entrainment is a physics principle, can we actually prove that chakras or their specific supposed frequencies like 396 hertz or 528 hertz even exist in a measurable way?
Objectively, no. And this is the absolute crucial tension here. We have to state that clearly. As of now, there is no scientific evidence that proves chakras exist as distinct measurable energy centers, or that their frequencies can be scientifically validated. For the mainstream scientific community, this entire system remains firmly in the realm of the esoteric or metaphysical.
So, if the existence of chakras themselves is scientifically non-provable, why do the sources, especially modern ones, keep referencing things like entrainment or the piezoelectric properties of quartz? Isn't that just kind of dressing up pseudoscience in scientific language to make it sound more credible? Is it just marketing?
That is the core of the ongoing debate, absolutely. And it's complex. Piezoelectric properties are real. Quartz does generate an electric charge when you put mechanical stress on it. That's not disputed. It's fundamental to how quartz watches work, how ultrasound technology functions.
So the crystal itself has verifiable energetic properties?
Yes, the material does. The massive leap is applying that known property, which is harnessed in specific technological ways, to the unproven concept of a subtle human energy field and its supposed chakra nodes. Can holding a quartz crystal demonstrably balance your biofield via piezoelectricity or entrainment? That's where the evidence falls short scientifically. It's speculative, perhaps early-stage research in some fringe areas, but mostly it's driven by subjective reports of benefits, not objective measurement of the proposed mechanism.
Okay. So if we sort of bracket the physics arguments for a moment, what does explain the very widely reported benefits that people claim? Feeling less stressed, more emotionally balanced, having better focus after working with chakras, crystals, or sound healing. People do report feeling better.
Absolutely they do. And the most direct, scientifically plausible explanation often comes down to a combination of the placebo effect and the very real measurable benefits of focused intention and relaxation practices, like meditation.
How does placebo fit in?
Well, the placebo effect isn't about something being fake. It's about the power of belief. When you genuinely believe a practice or a tool will help you, whether it's visualizing a color, holding a meaningful stone, or listening intently to a specific frequency, that belief itself can trigger real physiological changes. It can lower stress hormones like cortisol, improve mood, reduce pain perception. The ritual and the intention are powerful.
So the chakra system provides a framework, a narrative, for that self-care and focused intention.
Exactly. It gives you a map, a structure. You identify a feeling, like insecurity, link it to a concept, root chakra imbalance, and engage in a practice, meditating with red jasper, listening to 396 hertz. That focused attention itself is therapeutic, regardless of whether the chakra or the frequency has independent objective reality. The framework facilitates a powerful mind-body connection process.
That makes a lot of sense. It brings us back then to practical application. For someone listening who wants to engage with this system, maybe explore balancing their chakras, what's the crucial advice that comes out of the sources beyond just, say, putting on a sound frequency playlist?
Consistency and sequence seem to be key themes. The sources generally emphasize regular practice meditation with focused intention is huge. That means actively visualizing the colored light associated with the chakra, feeling into that area of the body, maybe chanting associated mantras, using sound therapy consciously, not just passively.
Okay, consistency. What about sequence?
This is probably the single most crucial piece of practical advice that emerges. Start with the root chakra and work your way up sequentially. Don't just jump to the third eye because you want more intuition, for example.
Yeah. Why the sequence? Why is that so important? Why not just target the one that feels the most blocked right now?
Because the system is generally understood as hierarchical, like building a house. If your foundation, the root chakra, dealing with fundamental safety and security is unstable, trying to activate and open the higher centers, like the crown for spiritual consciousness, can actually be quite destabilizing.
Like trying to put the roof on before the walls are properly built.
That's a perfect analogy. You need that solid grounding first. Otherwise, opening higher energies can lead to feeling spaced out, ungrounded, even anxious. And there's a key caution that also comes up frequently.
Which is?
Be gentle, especially with practices like sound healing using these specific frequencies. They can sometimes bring subconscious issues, old emotions, even traumas to the surface quite quickly. It can be intense. So the advice is always to approach these practices gently, mindfully, and perhaps with guidance if you're dealing with significant underlying issues.
That's really important advice. So start at the root, move up slowly, be consistent, and be gentle with yourself as things might arise.
Okay.
You now have, hopefully, a much more comprehensive understanding of this whole chakra system. Its ancient, complex spiritual roots, its very specific modern Western mapping with colors, frequencies, crystals, and that crucial ongoing tension between esoteric belief and modern scientific skepticism.
Yeah, and considering that whole historical evolution we talked about, from a sometimes vague concept of internal energy nodes in ancient texts, evolving over centuries into this highly detailed, color-coded, frequency-aligned structure we see everywhere today, it really makes you think, doesn't it? We have to ask ourselves, is the perceived power of the chakra system primarily derived from the literal truth of the map itself, or is it perhaps more about the profound effect of simply using the map, the act of focusing conscious intent on our own internal landscape?
That is the question to ponder. Keep diving deep into what moves you.